So we'll start this matchup series, of course, with Soul Bad Guy. And only because Soul is probably going to be one of the more common characters that you're going to run into in this game. If not that, there's also Kai. But Soul is definitely a character where how you want to approach the matchup is have him go through the drudges of trying to rush you down. Because of course Soul is a character here where he does very effectively mid-screen. Oh no, we have blocks on. He's very effective mid-screen, because he also has very simple combos that all lead you to the corner, and he also has very good, well, basic, very good safe jump mix-ups into empty low stuff. Where in the corner, he does a lot of damage to you. And I know that that's not the most optimal combo to do on Faust, but he has some very optimal combos that, like, will make you go, shit, maybe it's not a good idea to play Faust. He's such a big body that this sucks. Like, just in that sequence right there, that led to a stun if Faust ends up getting hit by the meaty GunFlame. So that's to show how powerful that Soul is once he has you in the corner. Where our job in this matchup is to pester him with our long buttons, make sure that he doesn't come in, throw items to limit his entry, and just make the whole matchup very difficult for him. So one of the things that I want to say immediately before we go through all the notes that I have for this matchup, it's very important to know that there are combos that have certain burst points. And what that means is there are some points in the combo where it is okay to burst, and you can practice that with the auto psych burst here. So just to show an example, we're going to do 5k 2D with Soul. So if you burst right there, and you know that the Soul is going to go for 2D, then it's relatively safe. However, there are combos where if you try to burst, you will get your burst thrown, because there are throw OSs that are able to catch your bursts. So just to show the full sequence here of a burst safe combo with Soul. Good. So yeah, even with the jump heavy recovery, it recovers in 0 frames. So going into the jump K, that actually leads into another throw OS for Soul, as shown right there. So be careful of that combo, because that combo is purposely to throw your burst. And there's another combo that he has that is also to purposely bait your burst. So you don't want to burst there if you see that the Soul is doing Fafnir. Where you do want to burst with Soul is if you start to see this. Because you see I was blocking low, but I still had so much recovery after doing the Bandit Bringer that now in this position, so if we're the Soul player, we're now full screen and we don't have any meter because we already used our meter just to try and get the Bandit Bringer, and we end up still going through RC meter penalty. So the Soul player ends up just having to start at square one, where we probably still have our meter, we're in a safe position where we can throw an item, they have to find their way in, and usually if they end up finding that hit, and that's like their only hit, then that's great for us because it just means we have the life lead. It's tougher for them to go through the matchup, and we can just go in if we want to and have them hate fighting us. So, to go through all the notes, what I will say that I remember, round starts are very important in this game, I feel, because round starts not only help dictate the pace of the match for you, but it's also good to limit all the options for your opponent, so that way they feel like there isn't really a good way for them to start, and it's harder for them to make the adaptations. So the button that you'll probably see the most from Soul is Far Slash, because of the fact that it hits that far. And Souls will usually go for that. Either go for Far Slash 2S because it recovers really fast, or they'll go for Far Slash 5 Heavy because it hits far. But they can't make any sort of confirm. To beat this, and just to show that is a sequence that you can do so that way you can test the round start yourself. To beat this, Faust literally can just do 5P. And he wins. Like, there really aren't a lot of options that are good to fight against 5P. The only one really is 2S, because it also connects. But it also goes right under 5P. But in that situation, you're able to check with your 2P. And even then, if they're still not respecting you, you can have the move whiff by doing 5 heavy. And the reason is because when Faust does his 5 heavy, the way that he's leaning back, that's actually where the hurt box is. So the Far Slash will end up completely whiffing where Faust should be standing, and you're just able to get a free whiff punish from round start distance. So yeah, they really do not have a lot of options. If there is any other option that they can go for, it's 6P, since 6P will catch your 5 heavy. And it'll also catch your 5P. But again, a really good check is to do 2P. Because even though this is showcasing it in the like frame 1 as soon as possible, it's still good because not everyone is going to press immediately like a robot, you know? If you are aware, or if you think that they're going to go for 6P and you're able to press 2P first, you should be able to catch their 6P. In this scenario, you know, this is showcasing like we're trying to get the button as fast as possible. And, you know, your opponent isn't going to be a fucking robot, so 2P is just a really good low check to make sure that they are paying attention. They can still try and counter using 2D, and again, we still do good in the RPS factor here. And this happens because 2P has a really fat hurt box, and both 2D from Soul and 2P from Faust start in 7 frames, so Soul will end up winning due to the fact that we have a fatter hurt box. But again, it goes right under 5P, we don't have to worry, and it goes right under 5 heavy, so we still technically don't have to worry. And we also end up recovering faster. See? So it's still technically our turn if they try to go for 2D, and we could just be like, nope, got you. So those are the round starts. Those are great ways to make sure that the Soul player is respecting you and is playing at your game. Sometimes you might have Soul players go for heavy baits, you know. They'll do round start Fafnir. 5P can catch that. In fact, you can even go for 5K if you feel like that they're gonna go for something crazy like that. If you think that they're gonna go for GunFlame, 5K is very good at catching that as well. And the reason for that is because the hurt box for 5K sticks out a lot. So 5P and 5K will stop Soul from using that as an option. You may have a Soul player think that doing Bandit Bringer will be a good option. Not really. It's not really a good option. And I'll go with the other issue with this matchup for Soul afterwards. Even in the case of doing Kudakero, no, not Kudakero, that's the dive kick. Riot Stomp. In the case of doing this move, 5K won't work out, and we actually have enough time to go 5P, 5K, 5P, 6P. It trades, but it's in our favor, especially if we're fast enough. So again, Soul does not have a lot of good options. Even if they are like super buck wild and they go for Grand Viper, again, we have enough time with 5P that we can just recover. So it's not going to help out. It'll be really good at beating 5 heavy because Grand Viper is considered low pro. But again, our punch buttons keep us safe, so we really don't have to worry. So those are the best buttons to go for. So the other issue that I was talking about for Soul in this matchup has to do with the fact that we have Crawl as an option. So with Crawl like this, where you're just holding down, we're pretty low, but we can actually go lower if we go for the actual crawl forward. And what really sucks for Faust here is that we have the ability to just duck through whatever Soul tries to go for. And we can go for punishes like that. We can go for a throw punish. We can go for, if they're not ready, we can go for an actual punish. And this is in the case for a lot of his moves. I think the only moves, understandably, Grand Viper and DP. GunFlame, of course, doesn't go under. Divekick won't beat it. And I have had weird scenarios where Fafnir will crawl under, but also other weird scenarios where Fafnir beats it. So that might be like a spacing thing. It might be like the case of like, I just happen to be right out of range. But Fafnir is supposed to be like this fat hitbox that covers the front of Faust, that covers the front of Soul, but has no form of invincibility on projectiles, strike moves, you know. Like, you can still throw it even. So just to show, even with Riot Stamp, we don't care. And these are probably like some of the more common moves. Even in the case of Bandit Bringer, for example. Not Bandit Bringer, Bandit Revolver. We can just ignore Bandit Revolver. So since some of those are the more common moves that Soul goes for, we can just ignore through them and get our punishes that way. And you can see just from a throw, we get to set the distance here and just make the matchup very difficult for Soul. And as another tidbit, so we're going to segue to this, Soul has, of course, the option to do either GunFlame or go into Bandit Bringer, Bandit Revolver. So if we feel that that's going to happen, we can actually go for an OS. And what the OS is if you think that Bandit Bringer or Bandit Revolver is coming, you can go into Crawl, but if you see GunFlame, you just go back into blocking. We'll go for that combo as an example. And you can see by me going for this OS, I'm able to get the Just Defend. We won't be able to get a punish, but still, it's good to always be able to build meter. And this will actually segue to another thing about Soul's GunFlame pressure. Since we showed case that the Hurtbox is very fat in front of Soul when he goes for GunFlame, at the right distance, because you won't even need to instant block. This is just like if you're at the right distance, you can actually air dash over GunFlame. And get a punish that way. And it's not that hard. As long as your IDs are good and consistent, it's not that difficult to go for the punish. Of course, you have to also pay attention to Soul's meter to make sure that he doesn't YRC. Because if he's able to YRC, that also means that he's able to keep himself safe. Yeah, see? If he has YRC, he's able to save himself from that situation. So always pay attention to the meter if that's what you end up going for. And if not, it's always okay to backdash, so that way you're able to create distance. Because again, even if Soul YRCs, we're back at square one here for him. We're back at this mid-screen distance where he has to go in and charge you, and you're just able to set the precedence. You're able to say, no, get out of here. Like, you can actually just wait to see what Soul does and then counter-attack him whenever he goes for some sort of option. You know, if he tries to air dash here, you could just be like, nah. Nice try. You can be patient, and if he does something like his dive kick, you can go for your anti-air options and just stop him. Like, it's very difficult for Soul to try and find his way into Faust. So next up, I guess we can also continue talking about the dive kick itself, since even though the examples that I gave, the dive kick itself is very weird and very scary to attempt to go for an anti-air. Because by itself, 6P is very good. But if it has to be at the tip, it has to be at the hand, as shown right there. Because there is no hurt box at the tip of the hand, but the hurt box is on Faust himself, so like the torso area. If the dive kick is too close, then it trades. But what makes it scary is the fact that YRC can also be a thing. Still works out, but not Faust. Soul can always, you know, go for the YRC. He can evade, kind of like in that situation. So if you mess up your 6P, then that can happen. He can YRC and then FD. He would still be able to back air dash. They can even go for something crazy and go for like Dragon and Saw if they want to. 5K can be an option, but you have to know the range of 5K. So that way you can go for a really good anti-air. The good news with 5K is that it's active for 8 frames. So you can press it pretty early and still catch Soul. But again, if they YRC, that's to bait the 5K, or even to bait 2K, and they can catch you. So that's why YRC is important. If you respect the dive kick and you're waiting for them to go for YRC, the best option to go for is to IB the first hit, because the fire afterwards also has a big enough hurt box that it connects to Soul. Which means, if I can get it, what's going on?
Many months later.
There we go. Which means that if you're able to IB it, you can go for Blitz. And you can go for a punish that way. So the last option against a dive kick as well, if you... I mean, of course, you can always go for jump heavy, because against your opponent should never feel comfortable being in the air, right? If you see them in the air, you want to try and smother them with jump heavy. And if you also want to cover yourself falling down, jump D and jump S are actually pretty good. Jump D has a bit of the hit stun, but it's better as a it's a better button if it catches a counter hit, because by itself it has to be pretty low. So you see, I can't get anything, but I'm able to get something if it's very low. If you're trying to anti-air the dive kick, and or if not that, you're trying to contest and scare Soul, like, hey, what are you doing for? You know, what are you doing? Where are you going? If you IB the dive kick in the air, there are some cases where like you can catch Soul beforehand, but he's already at like maximum velocity once that happens. So what you want to go for, if you do instant block it in the air, you usually want to go for falling jump K, because then that will give you that will give you the punish, more or less. Could jump D be better? Hey, jump D is better. Jump D is actually better. That's understandable because what is it? The jump K hitbox is like a little weird. But again, time it. But this is the maximum damage that you can go for. If you're able to get it high enough, sure. Like if you're able to catch them high enough. But as you can see, Soul is at maximum like speed when he goes for the dive kick. So it's very difficult to actually go for the air throw. So it's better to get the punish by going for a falling button. So in the sequence that Soul goes for Dragon Install, we'll actually do this. So if you find for yourself that you are in the situation where you're able to catch Soul while he's in Dragon Install, and you hit him with Concho Super, look at how much time is passing. Training dummy is done, which also means that Soul's Dragon Install time is also finished. So if you're able to get the right answer for your Concho Super, you're able to get another free punish on Soul. You could also probably go for, like, if you want to see what else that you can maximize, you can throw an item and just see what you get. So if you're very lucky and you believe in the heart of the cards, if you believe in your items, if you believe in Elven Shadow and the RNG gods themselves, you can go for a lot of extra damage here. It's like just free damage if you know that you're gonna get hammered, but still, that's just free damage for you. So it's whatever amount of damage that you're able to get with the super, plus whatever that you get, and you're doing over 300 damage probably. You could probably, if they don't have burst, you could probably win the game that way. So if Soul whiffs his DP, he'll be in automatic crouch state, which allows you to go for little extra bits of your attacks. You can even go for something generally safe. So you see that combos. And go for a tad bit extra. If Soul goes for his follow-up, he'll still be in crouching state, but he'll be in counter hit state. As you can see right there. Now, Faust doesn't really have a lot of counter hit options. If anything, what you can do is catch the landing frames and go for a free scalpel pull. But you won't be able to go for too heavy. Too heavy is a counter hit confirm with 5p. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, if you see them go for the follow-up of Volcanic Viper, we can actually go for a lot more damage. Or even stun. If we want to. You know, go for the full chop. 140, respectable, but you end up doing a lot of stun on Soul. And you can even go for this. You know, just attack on extra damage. You're able to utilize 6 heavy, maximize the damage that way. Now, this is kind of a level 1 thing. You know, I don't see this from souls that high level souls that are just like, all right, I'm gonna do it. You know, still, this is a good way of knowing what your answers are if you run into this. So, on Tyrant Rave, As you see right there, it kind of has a lot of space. It's something that you do have to respect from Soul because, as you can see, there's a bit of a gap. So you can see right there, Faust is getting out of the blocking animation. So that shows that there's a little bit of a gap right there where maybe there's some sort of option, right? So I'll say this right now, you cannot 5D through it because the second hit is considered a projectile and it's just generally very active. So it's impossible for Faust to even go through it. What your answers are for this, if you normal block it, and you know you have the meter, you want to stand block it, because if you crash block it, you'll be under more hit stun. And you do end up needing to spend meter just to get the punish. But still, it's a punish nonetheless. It tells Soul, like, hey, you messed up, don't do that, don't waste your meter. On instant block, the gap is much bigger on the first hit, so we can actually go for a 5P counter hit. We can't go for much else, though. Oop. So, like, we can't do 5K because Soul ends up being right under 5K hitbox. You can't do... I don't think it's smart to do 2P. Yeah, because you create more distance. 2P scaling is pretty bad. Like, if we look at the damage between 5P and 2P, it ends up doing a lot because this is a check. 73 versus 101, though. I'd rather do 5P than 2P. Whenever I get the chance, I would much rather do 5P to 2P. Of course, if that's a little bit difficult, you don't have to go for too heavy Pogo. For whatever reason, whatever reason that's difficult. You just keep it simple with 5P 2D into an item toss. So with the last option, with the last hit, it just makes you being able to dash up and punish much easier, right? Because here's the problem with normal blocking. Even if you get the too heavy to connect, you are nowhere in range for Pogo to connect. So if you don't want to spend meter, you might want to try IB in the second hit. Damn. There we go. I got it. And I'll say this as well, as you can see, like, I'm not crawling under it. It's because you can't. Again, it's active as hell. The hitbox is huge. It's not worth it. It's very impossible. Like, I'm even trying to 5D through it, and it's not working out. Like, good luck. You can, if anything, actually super through Fafnir if you get the IB. I don't think... I mean, I'm gonna test it. The gap is there, but I'm not sure if you're able to super through after the first hit, but I know if you IB the first hit, you can super through. Ah, well, there you go. And you can always go for Burst Concho if you just want the extra invincibility. And the last note here has more to do with once you're in Pogo stance. So, you know, obviously Pogo stance is really good because it puts them to the corner. It's your combo extension. It is, if anything, your combo ender. And it's +3 on block. So if they respect it, that's great. Because it shows that that's still our turn. Even at this distance, it's still our turn technically. However, there are some distances where Soul can try to retaliate using his 5 heavy. So as you can see right here, Soul is not in a spot where we can try and bait with Flower. But the reason that I'm doing Flower here is because at times, let's do this. At times, doing Flower YRC is just a good way of having a small wall in front of your opponent and getting off of the Pogo, so that way you can go for an anti-air, you can 2K, 6B, see what the opponent is doing more or less. The same can be for doing item YRC, right? It's just a quick way of getting something out and seeing what it is that you're throwing. Now I'm gonna switch to Soul real quick so that way I can showcase how this is negative for Faust. So if we go for this, we can actually deny the YRC since the Flower is not in our range, or is not in range of Soul, I should say. And he can go for a counter hit. And you can see just from that, like, practically a no-nothing combo. Going for counter hit 5 heavy into an air string. Simple, very, very simple combo, leading to 175. He didn't have to spend meter. That's really good, especially against Faust. Because now Soul's in, we're closer to the corner. He can go for GunFlame YRC. We have to respect him. So this is kind of like a level 1 test, you know? And by level 1, I mean see if they are aware of that tech. See if they're aware that, hey, they can steal their turn back actually by doing 5 heavy. Now, what if we do this? What if we actually try and bait by doing backdash? Doesn't really work, because we end up moving our hurtbox forward after we do the back turn, the back smack, and he can still punish us. It won't be a counter hit, but it's still not great. It's still not great for us. Even worse, if the Soul player knows that they have to IB, then it actually leads to Soul getting a free Bandit Bringer because Faust ends up getting hit airborne. And close enough, actually. Not there. Oh no, I'm thinking in the situation like if you go for a 6 heavy. So yeah, if you go for a 6 heavy here, then that just ends up being a free 2 heavy for Soul. But of course, the good at least is Soul ends up needing to see how far away he is from the screen. So his options might not be the best. It could be something as simple as that versus very, very, very scary, very fat damage, and all the combo enders that Soul can go to in the corner ends up leading him to getting Oki in any sort of way. He can go for his safe jump, he can go for fake safe jump into low, he can whip a button, go into jump P just to have you respect it, and then go into command grab. And then you're back to dealing with all this. He can go for an air dash and catch you with jump S. And it's just rough. You're in the Soul blender in that case. So how do we counter this, right? pay attention. That's really the best thing that I can tell you. Pay attention to the Soul player if they are respecting Pogo. Pay attention if they are aware of how to punish it and are using 5 heavy effectively to try and punish you. Pay attention if they're IBing, and pay attention to your meter. Because, again, if they know what they have to do and you have no meter to keep yourself safe, especially if they instant block it, then you're gonna die. You're gonna die with meter, and you need to keep yourself safe just to have Soul deal with trying to get to you, right? You don't want to have the 255 damage that's right there. And probably the last small little note. Any air string combo or air string sequence that Soul goes for, as you can see right there, like jump heavy is not fully connecting. Faust is actually able to do this. His crawl actually, just to showcase another thing that sucks for Soul, his air options do not reach. He does have one air option though. His jump S. His jump S hits low enough where if you start seeing jump S being used, then you kind of have to respect Soul whenever he's in the air, and you have to be on top of your anti-air game. Because his jump S is going to be the one thing that's going to be able to catch you. So you can see, nothing's really reaching. Nothing is really reaching. It's just his jump S. So, keep that in mind, Faust players. Crawl through the options I told you. Make sure Soul doesn't get to play. Use your burst when you see that they're getting high damage or they spent meter, and go into Bandit Bringer, so that way you prevent them from getting that damage. And you should be playing this game against Soul pretty effectively, pretty easy, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun learning the matchup, because this is one of Soul's harder matchups that he has to deal with. It's one that he can win, but it's one that we definitely take advantage of.